pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will hold off on our council activity reports, department head reports, and the public open forum, and jump right in because Leader Damath is here to share a legislative update with us. Can I put you right on the spot?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I just lost all my notes, so I'm not quite sure where to start. It's all good. Was it?
I was just going to say, we know she's on a tight schedule, but perhaps we're not worried about it now that the notes aren't.
I'll just,
Yeah, you
Off
got
the
it.
cuff, it's good.
So,
Well, is it okay to go ahead? All right, good evening, Mayor, Council, and members that are here. Thank you for the opportunity to visit with you for a little bit. I wanted to provide just a brief update, our legislative update, and then if you have questions, always happy to either answer those if I have the answers or get the answers for you. But our session finished up the end of May, and we'll be going back in February. I know I've had an opportunity to tour some space in the district, and I know you had both the House and the Senate bonding committees out to view some space and some of your projects that are looking forward, and so I look forward to working with you on those as you're developing what's right for Paynesville and as you move forward. But our legislative session was fast and furious, and if you were trying to keep track of what was going on, it was a challenge. There were a record number of bills, 6,600 bills between the House and the Senate, and over 100 were actually passed into law. And again, it was a little bit challenging to keep track. What I can tell you with those is there were some good things that came out. There were also some concerning things coming forward. Specific to the city, paid family leave was something that I know will put pressure on the city budget. That is also going to be putting pressure on our county budgets, state budget, school districts, cities, and any business regardless of size of that business. On the surface, paid family leave sounds like a great thing. We all want to do what's right for our employees, make sure that they have the ability to take the time off. But a mandate put in by the state, which will actually grow state government by another 405 employees and a brand new IT system, is not the best way to go, but that is in law. We are looking forward to doing what we can as time moves on and as we go back in to continue to hear from our constituents across the state and maybe look for some tweaks or some things that could make that a little bit more palatable. We know that that was unsure of whether or not that tax was going to be enough, and what has come back into an through an actuarial study is much more than was expected, and so that is going to have a higher cost. Earned sick and safe time for employees is another thing I'm sure the city is looking at, how you will keep track of that, how you will make sure that all of your city employees have what they need. That, of course, is priority, but yet a mistake in record keeping with a threat of a penalty of up to $10,000 is not what a city can afford. So those are some of the most challenging. We had the school resource officer issue that came forward as far as how that was going to be handled at the end of summer before our kids went back to school. Every community across Minnesota has taken a little bit different approach on how they're handling that, but there were no fixes made to it yet, so I know that is of great concern to a number of our communities. First off, we have to have student safety and staff safety within our schools, and our law enforcement, when a school district chooses to contract with them, does an absolutely excellent job. The last thing I want to touch on is the legalization of cannabis and how that has created additional opportunities and challenges for every community. That did make its way through a number of committees within the legislature, but yet it was concerning how that final bill landed. There is talk that there will be fixes, but at this point, we don't know what those are going to be. So that is kind of just a snapshot of what the last 5 months back in session were and what happened. As you'll see things rolling through and coming forward within conversations in all communities, there are a lot of challenges, and we look forward to the work getting back in February. It'll be a shorter session. February till May is what we're told at this point, and hopefully we'll be able to do some fixes. Hopefully some good things will come out. Look forward to the bonding requests that you all have on the table, and happy to stand for any questions if that's allowable in this space.
Yeah. So I'll just start with a few thank you, first of all, for coming and giving us an update. We appreciate having you, and you're welcome anytime.
Thank you very much.
A couple of things, as we've talked about the bonding tour that you touched on, and thank you so much, you and Senator Howe, for getting that onto those committees so that they could come out here. A couple of things. One is, and I know you weren't able to make the house tour because of your scheduling obligations, and I get it, but a comment was made by a member of the Republican caucus that said, the House Republican caucus flat out does not fund fire halls, period, full stop. And I'm just wondering if you could speak to that a little bit and how we as a city can best continue to work with members of your party to get this request through the House.
Sure. I had the opportunity earlier in the summer to go ahead and look at the projects and see the needs and understand that from kind of an inside look. When you have those bills drafted, or as the bills are being drafted, and then we put them in when we go back into February, I am happy to carry that bill. I can't speak directly for Senator Howe, but a lot of times when it's in our district, we will both carry those bills. As the bonding committees have gone through and looked at all of the projects, they do then, when we go back into session, they'll have their committee hearings. And I would encourage you, as soon as that bill does get a hearing, if I carry that bill, I will request a hearing on that. As soon as that is scheduled, I would ask that you would come and testify in favor of that. I'm happy to present that and then turn it over to you as testifiers. That is an incredibly impactful thing when we get to hear directly from community members when they're speaking for or against a project, but for a project in this case. That's very impactful to the committee. It allows the committee to ask specific questions that they might not see directly in the information presented in front of them, but happy to walk that process through.
Great, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing is, as we're talking about the fire hall as well as potentially a downtown revitalization project, which I know you're big into as well, but one of the things that we've started to toss about is a local sales tax for one or both of those. Is there appetite at the legislature for those yet, where we can come to you and ask that that be passed? Or are those sort of falling into disfavor at this point?
I would say that you, as you take the temperature of your community and you know where your community stands on something like that, that's always a bill that can be introduced and put forward at the legislature. The community impact and viewpoint on it is going to be key in testimony on something like that.
Thank you so much. And
Absolutely.
Again, appreciate it. I'll turn it over to any members of the council or anyone here have any questions for Representative Dana. All right, thank you again for coming to speak with us.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Have a good meeting.
Great. So we'll move on to our activity reports. Of course, there were a number of us over at the fire hall last week for the Senate's visit, which I think went well. Senator Howe was there, so I'm looking forward to Senator Howe and Representative Damath carrying those bills forward this next session. And then we had a budget and finance meeting where we talked about a final recommendation to the council. Happy to say that our budget recommendation coming into next year's cycle puts us back into a single digit percentage-wise, while still looking at a balanced budget rather than running a deficit or anything like that. So I thank the department heads for all the work they did, Tarek and Belinda for all the work on getting things slimmed down. It's been a tough couple of years with the increases we've had, but I think we're at a point now where things are much more manageable. So that's basically all I've got. I'll turn it over to Neil.
The fire meeting, of course, I think we had a policy and procedure,
Well, you're right, we did have that. Yep.
and then we met with City Attorney Spooner and talked about property negotiations on development. Then I attended the Lions Chili Supper and the Vet Supper last Saturday. That was well appreciated. A lot of businesses sponsored that.
We'll also say, since I'm looking at my calendar now, we also had a library board meeting where we talked about just sort of how things are going with NDSU. A number of us are going to be making a trek up to Fargo in a couple of weeks here to see sort of the initial models that they've done. So that's coming together nicely. Megan?
Let's see. We had the working session with the liquor store, didn't we? We didn't cover that at our last meeting, right? So we had that. I had a lodging tax meeting, a park and tree board meeting, the bonding tour that we discussed. I took part in the Minnesota Association of Small Cities Zoom discussion with Senator Klobuchar, which was mostly about the upcoming opportunities to secure funding with the infrastructure bill, just kind of a little bit about what's going on generally. I helped at the Lions Chili Supper. And let's see, we are continuing to work on the Christmas tree lighting, which is going to be on the 25th. So Small Business Saturday, and looks like that'll be a good event. So hopefully people will turn out for that.
All right, thank you. Jean?
Well, I had a planning commission meeting too, where all we did was set a hearing for the next one on a property split. And the liquor store working session and the Lewis Industries manufacturing tour was in that time frame, and the chili feed and a chamber board meeting. I think is everything. And I was going to mention the tree lighting, but Megan already did.
All right. Paul?
We had the property negotiations meeting with Neil. I went to the chili feed and also the meeting at the fire hall.
Okay, it's 6:11. We have a number of people here for their funding requests. We've got those at 6:15, so I'm not ignoring you guys. So let's go to Chief Wagner. Mike, you and Tarek have to be done by 6:15.
Sounds good. I don't have a ton to talk to you guys about. Probably the biggest thing is in the packets, in your packets. The police department will be hosting a kind of an informational discussion, if you will, on current scams and stuff like that that are going around town. That is open to the entire public, so we would encourage, anybody who's interested or been having issues with this or just want to, know more, to be at that. We're doing it next Monday at 7 at the high school, and then we're kind of doing or like a lunch and learn at the green roof at 11 o'clock the following day. Other than that, from the PD side of things, with some of the trainings and some of the stuff that I've gone through over the course of the last year, we're kind of reassessing some different things and focused on really what type of culture and that sort of thing we want within the PD, and as it relates especially to our hiring of staff and the type of people that we want to bring in that best fit the community and the department.
Okay. Is anything going to be in the press about your...
It was supposed to be sent over today, so we'll see.
Okay. I haven't drafted an article yet, so that might be what I talk on. We'll see.
It should be good. I mean, we're going to cover everything from the gift card scams to grandparents to the romance. We're going to really try and hit on a lot of the things that we're seeing popping up in our area, and a lot of things that we're seeing residents get scammed on. Unfortunately, a lot of times there's limited things that we can do other than report them and, try and see what can be done at more of a federal level. A lot of these things are happening from overseas, so.
All right, any questions for the chief? Tark?
All right, yeah, we had quite a few meetings. I went to the Chamber Connect at Bug Beehive Resort, and then we had the two final tours, Lewis Industries and Nelson Plastic, last day of October. The planning board, like Jean said, it was just setting a public hearing, policies and procedures, the library meeting, special council session on the liquor store, lodging tax, special budget and finance, park and tree. Chuck, Ron, and I also participated in a meeting with Bar Engineering to go over the LCC-MR grant for the water testing that we're doing in the 4 cities. So that was more of a discussion on what's happening, what was some questions and answers on what the case was here in Paynesville, and we gave them a tour of the site. And then also the Senate bonding tour with most of the council members, and then, as Megan said, we were on the Zoom call with Amy Klobuchar on infrastructure bill.
All right. Any questions for Tarek? I'll just say Jean shared with me that she was at home with the plague, and that's why she couldn't make it to the fire hall meeting. So
It is true.
you're excused.
Yeah. I didn't get to go to wine club.
No. All right, so then with that, we'll move on. We've got a little bit of time before 6:15. We'll get the consent agenda done and move on to the funding requests. So we have our consent agenda, which includes the minutes listed there on page 1, the vouchers totaling $821,315.36, board member resignation, and then a gambling permit. Looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda unless anybody wants something pulled.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Hertzberg, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Soini. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries. All right, then we have a number of people here annually, just for those who may not be familiar. The Green Roof Area Center, Community Ed, the Historical Society, and Cronus Lake Association. Every year ask us for various monies and things like that. We just ask that those making a request can give us an update on how the funds are being used so that we know that it's going to basically a community purpose and things like that. So I'll just start because I know the two of you are here and you're at the top of my list. Chris with the community education. Would you mind? And we're not going to decide anything tonight. That'll be included in our final budget, but we appreciate you being here, so.
Sounds good. I'm Chris O'Brien. I'm the Community Education Director here for Painesville. And every year, this seems like a tradition, as I'm new to the program since January, and so this will be my first request for summer rec for Painesville. We're asking for dollars to help offset the cost of our summer rec programming. And I did send numbers from our last summer program and our participation numbers. And as I went through that and compared to last year, last summer, our numbers were up by about 150 registrations. And we didn't offer track or drama, so we had a lot of participation and a lot of great new programs that we were able to offer for the community. So yeah, this is something that you've traditionally done, and hope that you would want to continue to fund this program. Do you have any questions? Yes.
It's probably a few, I don't know how many years ago, but Community Park, we have a wiffle ball field,
Okay.
and that used to be part of the program. I'd kind of like to see that back in play.
Okay. Just something I'll take a look at. I'll have our program.
Yeah, there's actually 2 fields, and the city went through quite a bit of expense to get that built. It's not being used.
I think we do use it for like our T-ball programs, so our smalls, yeah, so our small kids do use that, because that's about the right size for them. So I do think that is part of that, but I will have Melody take a look at that for spring. It might be a good adult wiffle ball league.
Thank you.
Yep.
You else have any questions for Chris? Because I will add that as I've been involved in a number of other things, the reach of community ed goes far beyond just offering services. Obviously, there's the PAC and things like that, but you also manage a number of, we're just going to call them nonprofit funds. It's not the right word, but various things at the school for groups.
Yep.
So like the business donations for the live streaming and the things like that, that's all managed through community ed. So I think those are important components of it as well. And
There's a lot of community ed is just a big umbrella, so a lot of different programs fall underneath that. We'll be starting up our adult basic education courses. We just hired a new instructor, so I'm kind of excited to see how that will go. She is actually a teacher here at Painesville, and she is our Spanish teacher. So I'm excited that we not only can offer, GED and adult diploma, but also English as a second language, and so I'm hoping that we can build a bigger program with that. So, yeah, we have a lot of balls we juggle, so, but it's fun. I enjoy it because of that, and and I'm able to be out in the community because of it. So, right.
Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Green Roof Area Center. Sally.
Okay, I did not think I'd have to come up in front like this. Inez lied.
She did.
She did. She's like, you just have to sit there and just thank them for the snow removal and stuff, and it'll be good. I'm Sally Zumwald, I'm the director of the Green Roof Area Center. And again, thank you for the snow removal. That was a saving grace last year. And fingers crossed, we can do it again this year, but have half the snow. And we appreciate so much the funding from previous years because it runs our programs. So by programs, I mean seniors, and we actually have had some younger adults joining our program, so it's opening up to the whole community. For programs, we have a cricket, so we'll do cricket classes, or we'll do, like I'm doing a doormat class, just different things, but finding things that seniors don't need more junk in their house. So it's just trying to figure out things that can benefit seniors, but also bringing in younger people to just check it out. So I guess that's our main priority, is funding so we can continue those programs and keep new people and existing people coming to the center and making it kind of their second home, because it is to a lot of people. So, any questions at all?
I don't have any. Thank you, Sally.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. You're one up on the Historical Society and the Lake Association because they just didn't bother. No.
Well, they're probably scared of that. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Gene, do you want to talk on the Historical
I
Society?
might as well, since
Okay.
I'm on that board. And just to say that the funds that we receive from the city, we use for operating, because the museum does not generate admissions very much, very small amounts. And then we have changed our fiscal year this last year from July 1st to June 30th. So that caused some changes for me, because I'm the treasurer. And then in the meantime, we also changed our membership drive to do it now just in January for the whole year. And we've changed the membership amount. It's like $50 a family now instead of $25 a person. And then we also started doing sponsorships to try, and those are all for our ongoing expenses. And then we get, well, we've got projects that we're working on too, all the time. Just maintaining, just siding the schoolhouse this last summer was $12,000. And now we have other things. But anyway, anybody have any questions?
Anything for Gene? Neil?
Gene, what did we give last year? The city.
5,500,
So it's the same that you're requesting?
yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Good thing I was here.
It is. All right, and then I don't see a letter or anything from KLA, so we take those under advisement. And Dan, I'm assuming you would prefer if we bump you up so that you don't have to sit there until we get all the way to you at the end, or?
That's fine, I enjoy it.
We can bump you up and you can take off, or you can hang out and wait, I don't care.
If that's all right.
Sure.
You join me at the...
Yep.
Sure, yep. So we'll bump down to new business C, page 121 of our agenda, the addendum to the hangar lease. All right, and Tarek, since Ron's not here, do you want to fill us in a little bit on what's going on? Otherwise, I'll just ask you, Dan, if you can just give us a quick heads up on, looks like you're trying to do a sales business out there.
Yeah, well, a little bit. So I'm Dan Grothe. I'm with Central Minnesota Aviation. We started that flight school out at the airport this year. We're renewing our commercial operator certificate with the Minnesota Department of Transportation. And we're trying to add a dealer endorsement to that in response to some requests that we've had from some of our students. with assistance buying airplanes, something that could flirt with us requiring to have a dealer license. So we thought, well, let's do it right or not do it at all, and we're just asking for the council's approval to add that in addition to our continued flight instruction that we're doing out there. So if there's any questions or concerns with that?
I don't have any, but Dan, since you're here, I'm wondering if maybe we can do a little bit of good PR and you can talk about some of the flight training stuff that's offered out there. And
Sure.
I know there's at least one instructor who offers reduced flight tuition to students. If you could talk on that maybe. And
Yeah, yep. So we're really lucky in Paynesville here. We've got 4 flight instructors based out of the field. And the nearest airports you'd find that, St. Cloud, the metro area, Mankato. So we're really lucky for a rural airport to have that kind of a resource. But yeah, we've got some reduced flight instruction that high school kids are taking advantage of. We've soloed 10 students in the last year. We've had 6 students obtain their private pilot certificate. And then we've had 5 students obtain an instrument rating, which is an advanced certificate. We've got 1 student that's obtained their commercial certificate, with several more in the works. So it's a need for initial training and reoccurring training for pilots based out of Paynesville and airports surrounding us. So we're filling a gap of need. So you're making a big difference in the aviation community out at the airport, so with your support.
Thank you. Any questions for Dan on anything here?
Is there any way we can help you promote that or any of, because I'm pretty nosy and I didn't know this was going on. So do you have the need to get it out to a wider audience if that's what's going on? Because I know a lot of times people are kind of like, the airport's just there. You know, I don't know if they know that they have these opportunities. Is there?
Well,
way we could-
without over extending ourselves as far as our time
Yeah.
that we have available to offer that, we could easily get overwhelmed if we
Yeah.
set the word
Wait,
too much.
Just
but-
say no, but I just, maybe
Yeah.
people were kind of aware more of what the use is.
Yeah, we
What's
try
happening
to
out there.
promote that. Anybody that comes out to the airport during the air show, I mean, that's the big time when
Yeah.
we try to, support the Friends of Paynesville Airport and welcome everybody out there and just being an advocate for the airport. So, no.
Okay.
Otherwise, I don't have any questions or concerns about the lease addendum, and I would certainly be open to entertaining a motion on that.
I'll make the motion to approve the addendum, the Paynesville Municipal Airport T-Hangar lease to conduct flight training services and operate an aircraft dealer business, and letter to Mr. Groth.
Great, I have a motion by Thielen. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Hertzberg to approve the addendum to Paynesville Municipal Airport T-Hangar lease to conduct flight training services and operate an aircraft dealer business, and letter to Mr. Grothy. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. See you at the airport.
See you there.
Thank you.
Right, let's go back up.
Marcus.
Yes, so. Tarek, do you want to tell us real quick about the hotel study?
Yeah, I was asked to look into a hotel market study and try to contact another consulting company that can do it. The 2 companies that we received quotes from, the first one is HBS. From what I gather in the industry, is widely known. So is the other person who, Patek is the name of the firm. And the HBS is nationwide, but the lady I've been working with, she's based in Pequot Lakes area, so she's local. Patek is based in Wisconsin, so they're both, fairly close by, have a knowledge and worked with smaller cities, and both come highly recommended by the major hotel brands, so they're both recognized. We have 2 quotes. The first one from HBS. When I was looking at both and trying to compare them, HBS was a bit higher, coming in, if we're comparing it at doing the same work, they're coming in at $11,000 for the study and the report. Plus, of course, there's some associated expenses with travel with that. And then Patek is coming in at 9,000, and they have a cap or an estimated cap on what their other additional expenses will be, so I like that. But I also like the fact that when Patek gave us a quote, she said that if early on realizes that there is no demand, or she doesn't see a sustainable demand for a hotel here, she's not going to continue and do the full report. She'll come up with a summary report and just say, cap the fee at, I think it was a $4,500 range. And so I like that part that if there is no demand, we're not going to pay the full fee. So these are the two proposals in front of you, and if you have any questions, I can try to answer them beyond what's already in there. But if you would like to proceed, then I guess we can just decide on which one you prefer to go with.
Your recommendation would be the Patek one?
Yeah, I think for our community, and like I said, if it is a no, there's no demand, we're not paying the full fee.
I know EDAP had initially said no to this, and I think we talked a little bit about going back and saying, well, the council's going to do it, so what do you think? Has that happened?
They had an EDAP.
Okay.
And I had Neil's concern addressed. Neil was saying, well, because of the highway, how is that going to affect it? Maybe we should wait. They both had the same answer, and they said that they don't look at 1 year or 2 years. They look at, what's been happening for the past 5 years and try to project what's going to happen, what the outlook is going to be, what's happening in nearby communities, what's happening in this community in terms of growth. So it's not a 1 year backward, forward looking report.
From what I read from with Patek, they're pretty thorough on what they do.
They both are. I mean, I was impressed with both. I just think for us,
Right.
though, I'm kind of leaning towards Patek.
Yeah, I understand that. And I also think too that if we don't do the study, we're just going to lean more towards stagnating. Whereas if we have the study, that's going to perk up the interest. So I think before we can move forward, we need to get the study done.
When I talked to 4 major hotel chains, and the first question was the same thing. If you want us to consider Painesville, let's see the study.
Right.
What's the timeline on the study?
I think they say they're,
3 or 4 months?
yeah, it's not that long.
Yeah.
And, whoever we choose, they will come out here, set a time, and then they'll meet with us and meet with others.
And I don't know that we're having an EDAP meeting next week either, as far as I know.
Maybe, we don't know yet. We're still setting the agenda to see if we can do it.
I think, yeah, as far as I thought we were.
We didn't have anything on there, though, I don't think.
We just have one item, which is the property negotiations item we talked about.
Oh, yeah. So if you want, we can wait till the next, and have it at EDAP next week.
Yeah, I'd prefer to go through EDAP before voting on it.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
So we'll bring this back to our next council meeting after we get some notes from EDAP. But I agree with Tarek that I think the Patek one looks to be the better approach here.
Yeah, I'll present the same to them and get their input, and of course, Jean, of course, maybe,
Yep.
yeah, I can add some more to it.
Speaking of EDAP, they're running an article in the paper this week. They're doing it on our revitalization goals.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I gave them
Good.
some information on that.
Yeah, they called me,
Okay.
so that should help a little.
Then moving on. Okay, it's going to take me longer to find the next item than we talked about this one.
Item C, old business.
Oh, I know where it is. It's just
Okay.
in the agenda.
He was further down, apparently.
There we
Oh,
go.
page 103 or
103, yep, there we go. Okay, so we have a continuation from the public hearing that we did back on September 11th, where we declared a public nuisance at 899 Flanders Drive, and Tarek and the chief will give an update.
Well, Mrs. Schwant is here, and then both the chief and I noticed that, the vehicles are still there. So I don't know what other update you have, Paul?
That's pretty much it. Nothing's changed.
Yeah, I mean, we're not set for a public hearing, but certainly, Mrs. Schwant, if you want to talk to us about things, we'd hear from you for a few minutes here. Yeah, if the vehicles are still there.
Yeah, the really only update I came to share is that I had a buyer fall through, so now I'm reaching out to other folks who had expressed interest. And of course, if there's other options, companies, junkyards, things like that.
What's our next option with Bill?
Yep. I'm just looking at this. So Bill, what would be our next step here?
Well, I mean, you made your findings at the last meeting, I think, and you set a deadline, and that deadline was passed, and so, you know, at this point, I guess what your order said is that you'll consider hiring a contractor to remove the items. You know, from my perspective, generally, my recommendation, unless the property owner is saying, I can't get rid of it, come on in and then do it. What I would do is ask for a certified copy of your order. I'd file it with the court, and I'd seek an administrative warrant allowing us to enter the property and remove the items. And, you know, that will take a little while, so Mrs. Schwandt would have some time, but I feel like, you know, we've got to follow through on it. We've made a decision, and we can't just sit back and do nothing. And so she's here. If she said, come on in and take them to the junkyard and give me the money, I guess we could arrange to have that done. But if she's not saying that we can enter her property, I think the proper way to do it is to get the court's permission to enter and do it, and that would take a little bit of time, and maybe in the meantime she can get it done. But that's would be my recommendation.
Well, I don't want to put Mr. Schwandt on the stand and say yes or no.
No, you don't have permission to enter
Okay.
my property, so.
No, and that's fine. I wasn't going to ask you to give it tonight. What I was going to suggest is that the council make a motion at this point authorizing the city administrator, police chief, and city attorney to move forward as necessary in order to correct the public nuisance at whatever speed our court system is willing to move at.
Do you have you know how long that generally takes?
I don't.
Like, no, somewhere between 2 days and a year, approximately? I know the concern previously when you were here, we talked about that, you know, you had wanted to do it before they were frozen in place, which, you know, I think is a reasonable thing. And I think, you know, you didn't have as much information as, you know, your husband or his father, I believe, might have. So, I think it kind of puts you in a hard position, but here you are, so.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea what you
All I
want?
can do is submit the paperwork and
Okay.
hope that it comes back quickly, but I don't know. I really can't give you an estimate on the time.
Okay.
Do you have any idea what you want to do with the vehicles?
I don't, it's my husband's, it's his property, so, you know, it's my property on the housing, it's his property before we even met, so.
You know, if
Selling it is the goal, you know, right now, but that's why he was trying to fix it up, so we can get them sold.
Well, I recently had something like this happen where I just had Windy Hill come, and they would pick it up and give you $250 per vehicle.
Windy Hill, is that,
It's a junkyard over by Howick.
okay.
Yeah, so if the repair boy wants to sell them, I mean, obviously, it's your option. But if you want to save us a bunch of paperwork and time, just give Windy Hill a call, and they'll come and pick it up within the day.
Well, that wouldn't be any fun now, would it, if I saved you time, so.
Yeah.
I'll give him a call and see what I can find out, but I have to discuss with my husband as well.
So, Bill, now that the public nuisance has been declared and we're looking at corrective action, do the costs of the corrective action get assessed to the property owner?
I don't think that our ordinance specifically says that. I'd have to look back at it, but I don't think it does say that. Whether there's a way that we can do it, notwithstanding that the ordinance itself doesn't say it, I don't know.
Well, I mean, at this point, I agree with Bill that we can sit here and talk about it more, but we've had a couple of hearings on this. We gave an order with a correction time and it hasn't been followed. I think a motion would be in order authorizing staff to move forward to correct it, knowing that may take, might be this week, it might be depending on the courts. And if things can be corrected before then, fantastic. But if not, then the nuisance will be resolved. That's my thought on it. I would entertain a motion of any sort at this point.
I'll make the motion to start the paperwork according to our attorney's recommendation for staff to start the papers account, moving the property.
All right, I'm hearing a motion by Soini authorizing staff to correct or to address and abate the nuisance. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Hertzberg. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Swan. All right, continuing to move on then. Our next was in legislative update, but I think we've heard that already. So the EDAP, Savage Land Partnership, wants us to sign a new loan agreement.
You want me to say a few words on that?
Yeah, if you could, but then I've got a quick question for Bill when you're done.
All right. Yeah, when we discussed reducing or capping the EDAP loans at, last month at 6.5%, EDAP board was also in favor of anybody who financed recently EDAP loans. They should be allowed to come in and refinance, provided that they pay the closing costs. And of course, immediately it made sense for Savage Land to refinance because they'll be saving, a good amount of money. They wanted to proceed and they wanted to close as soon as possible. So worked it out with Bill Spooner, and he drafted the documents, and yeah, that's where we're at. So they're going to go from 8, and I think they're at 8.5, right, Bill?
I believe that's correct, yes.
To 6.5. So that's what this new loan is for, and they are willing to pay all costs associated with it.
And the question that I had for you, Bill, is we had to have a public hearing on this one because of its cost. I'm assuming that because this is just a refi, we're not doling out additional monies, we don't need to have another hearing on it.
That's correct.
Okay.
We already made, I think, all the findings on the loan, and we're just reducing the interest rate.
Right. Okay. If there's any discussion, we can have that, otherwise a motion would be in order.
I'll make the motion to approve second amended economic development loan agreement, business subsidy agreement, second amended promissory note, guarantee of payment, and second amendment of mortgage for Savage Land Partnership LLC for a loan in the amount of $191,362.50 at 6.5% interest per annual for 9 years and 7 months.
All right, we have a motion by Hertzberg as stated on the action sheet. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor indicate by, or second by Soini. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries. Right. Now we go on to not the next thing, but the thing after the next thing. All right, Chief, on the sergeant position.
Yes, thank you. So this is something that we've been talking about for a little while. As we look at the recruitment and retention of staff, one of the things that the city has had in the past but currently lacks is a mid-level supervisor position that offers staff the ability to advance in their career and maybe take on some more responsibility in the event that they're looking to, say, take my job someday or, move on to another agency in a similar capacity.
No one's interested in doing that.
You might be right. So with this, looking to recreate this position, it is something that was here back, I believe, at least as far back as I can trace it, was for sure back in like the 80s. And then I think it was once Bill Dreger became chief that sergeant's position kind of just disappeared. But bring that back, give us an opportunity. We do have an officer that I believe is more than qualified for that position. But look to start whatever process we would need to bring in and hire that position, whether, you know, whichever one of the officers might be interested in it, but I believe, just in talking with Tarek, from a budget standpoint, this would increase, it would be one step above where the officers currently are.
One grade.
Yes, sorry, one grade above where the officers are, so that position would be a grade 10 versus grade 9.
What are your thoughts on recruit? I can see how this might help with retention for whoever could step into that role. But once that, my concern is that we still just have the one position. So is it really going to be that enticing? Not to say we shouldn't do it, but I'm just realistically so that we know.
So I think we have to look beyond, say, our current situation for that. One of the reasons, you know, we've had guys leave is there wasn't anything for them. And, you know, yes, if we fill that position with one of our current officers, yes, it's, you know, it's fulfilled, right? But we don't know what's gonna happen a year from now, 2 years from now. If an officer in the department gets put in there, he may decide he wants to go somewhere else, or life circumstances may happen. I don't think he will, but if
Neither of those things will happen.
if life circumstances happen, you just never know. You know, there's officers that I would have said never would have left, you know, but things happened and they ultimately did. So, but as I've been looking at the department as a whole and looking at the structure within the PD, I'm also looking at it beyond just, say, this position. And a level of succession when it comes to my position and the continued working of this department. At some point, I will leave this department. If we train this officer in this position up to the point where they would want my position, now we are starting to build a level of succession within the department to keep things going and hopefully on a positive path. So even though it may seem like nobody's going to be there, you know, or that opportunity won't be there, at some point it may be. And I think it helps us to bring people in to know that, hey, I've got somewhere I can go. Even if it doesn't look like it right this second, I know that possibility is there.
And I think you touched on this. You have somebody who's interested, but we would still open it up broadly as well, right? Any other discussion on this? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
I just remember at the working session with the police department, we discussed, you know, in the current climate surrounding policing, especially rural policing, what success might look like for us and for this department. And I know that, you know, we talked about, you know, maybe we don't have somebody who stays their whole career, but maybe we have somebody who stays long enough to take advantage of the sabbatical, or maybe we have a few. And I recall it being said that we'd be satisfied with one. And I think that, you know, I don't know that we can separate recruitment and retainment. Obviously, we have to if we're looking at a plan of action, but when I did research, it seemed like, you know, that was one of the main things surrounding the issues with finding good recruits to stick around in rural police departments, was that there wasn't anywhere for them to go. And especially if there's the threat of them being poached all over the place, which there is, because that's the way it is today. I don't know, I think that it's a good idea, even if it just helps with as the chief was saying, the succession within the department. So, if it's a good time, I'll make the motion as stated.
Okay, there's a motion by Brick as stated on the action sheet to establish the sergeant position within the Painesville Police Department, approving the job description, starting the hiring process, and allowing everything to continue until a recommendation can be made to council. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Soini. Any further discussion on this? Calling the question, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. On to Bill. You want your people to work more?
Yes.
Work them into the ground.
With the current working situation and trying to find staff, has been a struggle like everywhere else. I have 3 staff members that would like to work more hours. They've always been told they could only work up to 32. After a little research, it looks like they could work under 40 without benefits. And asking for your blessing so I can have some extra help. We got audits coming up, holiday season. We're all going to be working, you know, we're going into our busy season. I want to make sure we're well staffed. Plus these audits getting caught up. Then this, once we get an assistant manager hired, then that game would be over. Then we'd have to readjust and go back to where we should be. This is my goal. So
I understand Chuck's looking for part-time work this holiday season.
I don't know, dangerous situation going on there.
if you can count past 10.
Can you work the PD too?
It's just everything.
It'd be like a Swiss Army knife.
All right, so we've cleared this through HR and legal and all that fun stuff, so we don't need to do an MOU. We just need authorization to work under 40 hours. I don't got a problem with that.
I'll make the motion to allow part-time liquor store clerks to work anything under 40 hours is deemed necessary by the liquor store manager.
Okay, I have a motion as stated on the action sheet by Hertzberg. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Brick. The only thing I have, it says up to 40 hours. I mean, occasionally they could work 40 hours, could they not? Or does it have to be
Well,
39.9 all the time?
It averages out over a period of time.
Yeah.
You know, because like when we were on vacation, when Zach and I are both gone, you know, Chris she had some overtime couple times, but it's not usually like that, you know, so we're looking around 36 to 37, but like with Wine Club the other night, you know, there was an extra 4 hours for everybody, so.
The way I understood it, as long as it's not consistently over
Yeah.
40. If it's like a 1 week over 40, next week it's not.
Extra hours, including for some people who thought they were just gonna go drink wine and got, you know, bulldozed into pouring. But I believe when we discussed it, looked at what it meant when it came down to me with the conflict of interest, Bill Spooner, it was the term regularly, correct? Regularly work over 40 hours where it became an issue?
Yes.
So, which is vague enough, but.
It's not regular.
Right. We have a motion, and a second as stated on the action sheet. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, now, Tarek, on the fire pit, we want to keep it open until 11 p.m.
Yes.
Notice how I skipped your recommendation for 10 and went straight to 11.
Exactly. We have 2 different boards recommending 2 different times. The first board that met was policies and procedures, and we felt that 10 p.m. was adequate for fire pit hours, and we gave our reasons why. However, when we took it to the park board, they strongly felt that we should just go with quiet hours, which is 11 p.m. Strongly.
The park board has strong feelings about lots of things. I think the prevailing sentiment there was just, you know, if quiet hours are 11 as it is, what's the point of, you know, if you're at the fire pit, you could just go walk and stand on the sidewalk and make noise for another hour anyway, because, you know, so I think.
They're talking summer as well, where.
Yes,
Where it's not
yes,
dark enough.
yes. So I think that that was why we felt that 10 felt sort of arbitrary, and that it would just be easier to say 11 full stop since the quiet hour ordinances would already be in place.
And just keep in mind, this is only for the fire pit, not for the park.
Right.
Let's just leave it for the whole park is my only thought.
Well, then you have to answer the police chief here.
I mean,
That was my question.
what does that mean?
Like, how do we say somebody can sit in a fire rig?
It can't be around the park.
Right.
They're gonna have
From
to
the
run to the
police
restroom.
perspective, what is your
Well, it's
recommendation?
closed right now, but.
Yeah, I know.
So, you know, we talked about the said policies and procedures. My personal opinion was that it should be a certain number of hours after dusk. I understand the idea and the concept of, you know, the fire pit is there, but why can't they use the rest of the park? Knock on wood, I think our ordinances that are in place do a lot to deter vandalism within our parks, because they close at dark. And if we we see people in the parks after dark, we're moving them on. Well, if we allow access in the parks, are we going to start seeing that vandalism with no recourse and the ability to do anything with them? Right? I mean, obviously, if we're seeing the vandalism, we can, but, you know, we don't see a lot of the same vandalism that you see in other communities in their parks. The spray painting, the, you know, the drawing on their equipment and that sort of stuff. We just don't see that here. And I think a lot has to do with our ordinances. I think if the council's, you know, position is 11 o'clock, I think 11 o'clock for the fire pit and the fire pit only is fine. I definitely don't recommend extending it beyond the fire pit. I think it needs to be isolated to that space.
Well, that park does have cameras as well, which is helpful too. But I think, I mean, I think that most of our officers are reasonable people, and I think if they go and there's a fire pit there and someone's clearly walking to the bathroom or, you know, going to their car, they're not gonna be like, but if somebody's there, you know, a kid's there with a can of spray paint and no fire in the fire ring, then they're gonna be like, hey, you're not here to use the fire pit. So I don't know, I think that we say, my personal opinion is that we say 11, but, you know, you have to be intending to use the fire pit.
So you bring up an interesting point with that, Megan.
What a surprise.
The bathrooms are gonna be locked in the dark.
Yeah.
So if it's dark at 8 o'clock,
Mhm.
the bathrooms are gonna be locked, so nobody who's out there at 11 o'clock, you know, between 8 o'clock and 11 o'clock, there won't be bathroom access.
Yeah, well, and there's not during the winter anyway, but, I know, I just mean, you know, if somebody's not right within the fire ring, you know, maybe they stepped aside for something or whatever, I think that obviously there's gonna be some leeway. I just, I think it would be evident, who was going to be there to use the fire pit and who wasn't, is what I was trying to say.
I guess I was leaning at 10, because even in the summer, that's when you lock the bathrooms.
Yeah, we would lock the, you know, when the sun goes down, so at dusk, so.
I thought it was 10 o'clock.
Oh, it's at dusk.
And they get to it sometimes.
Sometimes it's when we get to it, but a lot of times it's at dusk. So once the sun goes down, that's when it gets locked. So there's no real fixed time.
I like 11 o'clock. I want to trust people that we're not going to see vandalism. And I realize I'm saying that knowing what's happened in the bathrooms multiple times out there and why we have cameras in place. But my personal opinion is I'd like to see us give it one go, and if we have a vandalism issue, we can address it at that point. And I will eat my crow and move on from there, but that's my position on it.
That's kind of my thought, we should try 11.
Yeah.
And if we are running into issues, then we can go back and change it.
I just don't think the hour is gonna make a ton of difference. If quiet hours were 10, I'd say 10, but they're not, so.
Yeah, no, I think 11 makes sense for quiet hours. I'm thinking opening it up, like just doing the whole park. That's my thought there.
Is there a motion?
I will entertain a motion.
Can I add something?
Yes, sir.
Would it be beneficial to put up some sort of security cameras?
We have them.
We have cameras.
Okay, so that's already in there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there we go.
So I've got a question for Bill. If we allow the entire park to be open, what does that do for the city's potential liability with the playground equipment and being dark? If it's not lit?
Well, I mean, I don't know, I mean, you know, you're not, I don't know what equipment is, like the water, I assume the water features are turned off.
Yep.
There's like a playground there, like a obstacle course type ninja playground thing.
Yeah, and some swings. which people use after dark all the time anyway.
Yeah.
I'm thinking more of those kids that want to be adventurous on a Ninja Warrior course with
No, I get it.
light. And I'm just asking, it's, you know, whatever the council decides, it's up to you guys. I just, you know, I don't want to see us say the whole park is open and potentially put us in a bad position.
I mean, right now, this doesn't say that, but, I mean, the council could change it to say that the whole park is open. I don't know. I don't know what, you know, it seems illogical to say this whole park is open and not say all the parks are open.
Yeah, that was
I
my
mean,
other
what's-
concern.
What's the reason,
Yeah.
what's the reasoning?
Well,
for
this has a
saying-
fire pit.
Well, yeah, no, I realize
Yeah.
the fire pit itself, but to say that the whole park is open, well then, why not have
Yeah.
the other parks open? What would be the reasoning?
Yeah, I guess for that reason, I'd prefer to say the fire pit only, but,
I think they should all be open.
huh?
I think they should just all be open.
Okay, well, let's not get crazy, but, or let's, it's up to,
So, we're gonna do a tree lighting. Are we going to do it at 3 o'clock?
yes. No, we're doing it 5:30.
But the park is closed.
It's a special event.
But the park is closed.
Okay.
I mean, but
Would you
that's
like to make a motion about what you want to see here?
just,
No, I know what you mean, but then if we say, well, we did a tree lighting that one time, or, those 3 years in a row or whatever in Gazebo Park, or we had the jubilation after dark in Gazebo Park, then that means that people can be doing whatever in Veterans Park at 10:30 when it's pitch black, or people can be doing whatever in all the parks, at 10:59, and I feel like, for me personally, I think that's, especially since I have a hooligan teenager wandering around with his friends, I just think that it's, God bless him, and I think, considering that our parks are in neighborhoods and for the majority and people live in them, I feel like this one park, we have a purpose for it to be open beyond events. But I think that, it should be, because if you're not there for a fire, then there's not really any reason for you to be there after dark for, you can be there whenever to do what it is you want to do. But with the fire pit, you have to be there, or, most people want to be after dark. So I think that, and especially on the park board, we wanted to see, we wanted to put things out there to be used, and, for this particular park feature to be used, it seems to be the benefit to have it after dark. But for the rest of the park features, I don't think that there's any benefit to having them open that late, personally.
well, I think this horse has been beat, well past its death. I would entertain a
Flogging.
motion of any sort.
I'll move that the fire pit area in Gazebo Park be open until 11 o'clock, quiet hours. The fire pit area of that park only.
All right, there's a motion by Brick to allow the fire pit only at Gazebo Park to be open until the 11 o'clock to line up with quiet time. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Swaney. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None, motion carries. Right. Moving on then, I received a petition emailed to me that I forwarded to Jen and Tarek that got put on here because there's no trail meeting before the petition's due. I'm wondering, are you Marv?
I am.
I thought you might be when you came in. So, Marv, if you want, we've got a podium there if you want to talk to us about the petition, but it's talking about expressing support for extension of the bike and walking trail within Stearns County.
Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. It's kind of just a dream of mine. It's been for 10 years. I ran it up the flagpole with the County Park Commission 12, 15 years ago. And they thought it was a very good idea, but they were working on a master plan at that time with the focus on the Lake Wobegon Trail. I got wind that they were working on a new master plan about 3 weeks ago, and they're taking suggestions until the end of November. Again, now it's a new park director. I talked to him, and I said, my wife loves biking. Her family's really into this biking thing. I see that there's a lack of loops in the state of Minnesota to bike on, any significant loops. The Wobegon Trail, wonderful trail, but it goes from there to there. And then you gotta shuttle cars, you gotta drive back and forth. The Glacial Lakes Trail from Wilmer, almost to Paynesville. The county's looking at continuing that all the way to Wade Park and tying into the Wobegon Trail. And so this trail from the interstate down number 4 and then crossing 55 and hitting the Glacial Lakes Trail would create that biggest loop that I forget how many miles that was, 80, 90 miles. And then there's a smaller trail that runs through Greenwold and New Munich to Albany to Bruton, thus creating additional loops. The Stearns County Park Board invited me to propose this at their meeting last week. So I did, and they were very ecstatic. As a matter of fact, what they said is, how come we've been looking at county maps for how many years and we've never even thought of this? One of the gentlemen on the board, he said the timing's perfect. The MnDOT and DNR is flush with cash. And I learned a new key phrase. It's called active transportation. Okay. And that's what their money is earmarked for. So there's a real good chance this thing would cost the county nothing more than oversight, I suppose. In any case, why am I here tonight? I wanted to get it included in this 20-year master plan with the county. It's kind of once in a generational thing. Once it gets on the master plan, then maybe the real work starts. But I'm hoping that these 20 cities that are on this trail network in this here county, and I'll probably expand it to the other counties and cities on, beyond the county borders, so that it has enough weight to keep it towards the top of the pile with the county. So, yeah, my calendar is pretty well filled with meetings like this. But I don't know, and you'd think I would be a little more prepared than I am, I'm sorry. I got a little map that looks like, fifth grader drew it. I don't know if anybody wants to see a map. I'm kind of a visual person myself. I can show it to you where the different, it's on a county. Okay, and then there's a list of all the cities, 20 or 22 of them, and then all the different townships that would, these trails would crisscross. And so it's a great benefit to the county. And I'm talking with Stearns County History Museum to see if there's some money for signage on all these different cities or even townships. Kind of a, what do you call it? When you're at a state park and there's a trail that you actually learn as you walk, yeah. Mm-hmm. I believe, and I talked to several people on higher scales of Minnesota trails, like the Root River Trail, the Bike Across America, whatever. And they too are very excited about this. they feel that Stearns County would be a destination for a multi-day trail ride, which is hotels and restaurants and gas and people. I see towns, Painesville, Meyer Grove, well, I'm from Meyer Grove, any of the towns on the trail be much more attractive for people to move to if there's this trail system on there. I said enough, I don't know, is there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Would this just be for biking, or would there be allowed for motorized vehicles also? ATVs side by side?
Yeah, and then that's to be determined.
Yeah.
You know, if it's active transportation trail money,
Yep.
then there wouldn't be any snowmobiles on it. Or maybe there's room because snowmobiles is in the winter, or you want to make it cross-country skiing, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with the Sioux Line Trail that goes from Piers to Moose Lake and up to Superior, Wisconsin. And it's a dual-purpose trail, snowmobiles in the winter, and then there's a tarred portion for bikes and walkers, and a dirt portion for the ATVs. And that thing is used quite a bit. There's a lot of towns along that trail that benefited from it greatly. So I think this is a great idea that you have. It's just gonna have to, move forward, and then when the time comes, then they'll work the bugs out. So I'd be for it.
Yeah, and I think just to clarify, all you're asking now, Marv, is that we sign on to the petition so that this can get onto the 20-year plan.
Yeah, and so, in January, or at a later date, I might be back and say, here are some finer details. We'd like to have a trail in the right of way, but separated from the traffic. Or we'd like to use this for snowmobiles as well, or whatever. Those details are, forthcoming, I suppose.
Well, and we probably don't have to tell you, but we sit in a desert of trail access here, kind of. We have the trail that goes around Lake Coronis, and we have access to the glacial lakes. We have nothing to the east, at least nothing paved. And we're working on that. We've passed resolutions in favor. Cities along the trail have passed resolutions in favor, hoping to get that section paved. But I think the loop going north and connecting the rest of the county is a great idea as well. So I'm also in favor of this. I think it's a great idea, and agree with the source or with the comment that DNR is flush with this kind of money right now, and now's the time to be applying. So.
And I'm on the trail board with the township, so I'll bring this up to them to give their blessing too.
But that would be great.
Yep, no problem.
And so, if the city was so inclined to sign the petition, you could just email that back to me? Yeah. I don't have a working copy to bring to everybody because I got different people. Some of these meet Bruton's tonight at the same time. And so, there'll be multiple signature pages when I submit this. And I guess ultimately, because I presented last week, I don't think I need to submit this thing by November 30th for them to accept it, because they were pretty ecstatic. They really enjoyed the idea. In any case, then I'll let you get on with bigger and better things here.
No, I think this is great. I think this will, if we could get something like this to happen, it would be a blessing for our county. So at this point, I would entertain a motion, unless there's any further discussion or comments from Marv. Paul, you want to?
I'm trying to find what I'm supposed to say. Motion to endorse the petition to the Stearns County Parks and Trails and authorize the mayor to sign the petition.
Motion by Thielen, as stated on the action sheet, to endorse the petition and authorize my signature. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Brick. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, we'll
Thank
get you
you.
a signed copy.
Okay.
You said email is fine, you don't need the inked one?
I don't believe so.
I'll email you, yeah.
We'll get it to you then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now, back to what Leader Damath was talking about at the beginning, the earned sick and safe time policy. Policies and procedures spent more than a little bit of time talking about this. Budget and Finance has talked about it a little bit. And basically what it comes down to is this is the state mandated policy. It is going to supplement part, I'm leery at the word supplement. It's not quite the right word. It's not going to replace PTO, but it is going to sort of serve as dual PTO. This policy was drafted with our labor attorney, presented to Policies and Procedures, was approved it, and essentially what it's going to be is the state mandates that every employee, part-time, full-time, whatever, gets earned sick and safely 1 hour for every 30 hours worked, up to a maximum number of, I believe it's what, 38 hours?
I don't know.
48 hours
48.
in a calendar year. And a lot of this is changing. There was a lot of discussion about whether or not we as elected officials get it and how that would be calculated, how anything else like that works. For all of the part-time employees, this is a new benefit. This is state mandated, we have to do it. For full-time employees, Policies and Procedures considered basically 2 different options. The first one was to leave PTO the way that it is and to take the 24 hours required by earned sick and safe time as a separate benefit. So an increase to the total number of PTO hours that can add. However, in discussions with the labor attorney and things like that, rather than treating it as a separate benefit, which would cost the city more money, the law does allow for us to incorporate this into our PTO policy, because our PTO policy is the same thing. The biggest difference is that PTO is deniable, whereas earned sick and safe time is not. So the way this policy is drafted, the first 24 hours, or the first, 48 hours of PTO would be classified as earned sick and safe time, meaning that it can be requested and it has to be granted. Beyond that, it's optional. Now, most of our department heads aren't going to reject someone who has a legitimate need for earned sick and safe time, but that is one thing to be aware of. We are also able to request physician's notes and things like that for somebody who wants to go on a January cruise and classify it as their earned sick and safe time. But that's out there. This is the policy. It's not an additional benefit. It is going to supplement, is probably the better word for it, the PTO that's existing now. And again, this is something that's been drafted that Jen and Belinda and Tarek spent a lot of time on. Policies, Procedures looked at it and approved it, and recommend that we adopt it. Anything else that you think we should add, Neil?
Down the road, this is gonna be a program kind of like Medicare and Social Security. Employer pays so much, employee's gonna pay so much.
Yep.
I believe that's what Lisa was referring to earlier.
Did they ever figure out what to do about the fire departments and stuff?
They qualify as of right now.
Yeah, that's what I said. How do you gonna figure it though?
For every 30 hours,
Yeah,
you have to do the math on every firefighter.
when they can call or do training.
And then you have to, we got people at church that are salary, and then they're gonna have to turn in time cards to keep track of the hours. So it's kind of a nightmare.
And so far, then we have to do?
No, it does not apply to us.
I didn't think so.
That's good, because that would be a nightmare to try to figure
I
out.
can't keep track of the hours now.
Well, we can't catch a break, can we?
No, we can't get any sick time.
I
I
know.
could have used it last week.
But we really don't have a choice, I think.
No, we don't. No.
I think I'll make the motion, and I'll make the motion to approve the earned sick and safe time.
There's a motion by Hertzberg to approve the earned sick and safe time policy. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? I heard something down there.
I have a question. So I'm just thinking through this, and I obviously wasn't part of the discussions of policies and procedures, but have we run this by the union? And obviously, I know we have to, you know, and it's something that has to be incorporated. I guess my concern is, we're saying your first 48 hours is that time. And I agree with you, Sean, that the fact, you know, the odds that myself or Bill or Ron are gonna be like, no, you can't use it if you've got a legitimate, you know, sick or safe leave issue. I can just see the issues coming up where an employee says, well, I took 48 hours to go on that cruise in January, but now I have something else that came up that's, you know, would qualify under the sick and safe leave, and maybe the circumstances warrant, you know, a manager saying no. I could see an issue. I was just wondering if we had conversations or anybody reached out to the unions to confirm that they wouldn't have any issues with this.
I thought it said in there that if you use the 48 hours, then you don't get additional.
Correct, but
The policy is such where, I think the answer to your question is no, it hasn't. But in talking to the labor attorney, she expressed an understanding that this might be not the preferred approach by the unions, that it would rather be a separate benefit on top of the PTO. The third option that Policies and Procedures was presented with, which we know would have been vehemently opposed, is knocking 48 hours off of PTO in favor of earned sick and safe time. That didn't go anywhere fast. So
I'm just wondering, is there a reason that we need to designate any specific amount of time?
Yep.
because it has to be
It
tracked.
has to be tracked. It has to be reported.
Okay, no, and I get that. I guess what I'm wondering is our staff gets X amount of PTO. Is there anything that says we can't, you know, as a city and as administration say, if you're using this as safe and, you know, sick leave, you need to identify that with us versus us as a city within the policy saying your first 48 hours are those sick and safe leave hours.
I think it's a practical matter, that's how it's going to play out. But our policy has to say this, because this is what we're going to utilize in reporting it to the state. And, I mean, or maybe not, but this is what our labor attorney recommended we do. We know that there's just no good way of doing it unless we... The sense that I have been given in talking to Tarek and Jen Belinda, the unions are going to be irritated unless we simply add this as a second benefit and add another 48 hours of PTO onto full-time employees. That, I think, is a financial cost that the city cannot bear given our current budget. So this is the answer to that. So
And I'm asking the question because I can see, I'm not saying it's coming out of the PD, I'm not saying it's coming out of the city hall unit or the city unit. I agree with you. My big question would be is, if we're designating hours and they grieve this in arbitration, in mediation, do we as an administration win or are we gonna lose?
Tarek, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. That's the answer.
This is...
We don't know.
It's all new.
Yeah, this is the least evil approach forward, the least...
It's kind of like Lisa said, they passed the bill and they don't know what they got.
And I'm just wondering if it would have been worth a conversation. I mean, you know, I don't think our unions are that, I don't know what the right word is.
Curmudgeon-y.
Hard to get
I was just saying, I don't think they're that unrealistic to sit there and say, okay, these are our three options. We've chosen the middle path. What do you guys think? Because if we can head off the problem before it becomes a problem.
It's gonna be all over the state. They're all gonna be in the same boat.
I don't disagree.
Yeah,
I-
it's
I'm just asking, just to see, because I just don't want to see us, to backtrack on this.
I mean,
No, I think,
And I think honestly, Sean, Linda and I have talked about this. My only big hangup with the whole thing is, because I flat out said, I'm like, there's no way you're gonna get taking 48 hours out of the PTO. That definitely is not gonna fly, because now you're reducing a benefit. Certainly, they're gonna say add the benefit, I don't disagree. My only question with this is, we are designating the first 48 hours, and I agree, I think from a practical standpoint, it's gonna work exactly like we discussed. However, we can only talk about that today.
yep,
And we don't know, administrations change, things change, and now all of a sudden, are we setting ourselves up for issues down the road? That's
I think-
all I'm asking, and why I'm asking.
again, going back to the practical approach, somebody somewhere is going to grieve this. Somebody somewhere is going to file a lawsuit with the state, and the legislature is going to amend this. And until then, we just kind of got to hope and pray that they don't choose us to be the guinea pigs.
yeah.
But somebody's going to be, and I think the
It'll
other,
be a big city.
Well, this
I
is
agree, I think it'll be a bigger city, but I
this is
think,
far least impactful than the other stuff.
Yeah,
yeah, no,
yeah.
I think, at some point, our labor attorney was like, look, we've just got to do this, and we can change it as we go along. And I think we as a city, or at least policies and procedures, I think understood when it came to us last week that there is some risk in this, only because the statute is ambiguous. So if that means that we have to do that, it means we do, and I am not going to feel like we failed as a city, because I think we can easily point the finger at the state and leave it there.
I think in like this, or in the cannabis legislation, or anything where they just hand us a thing and they're like, figure it out. It's gonna be a cluster, there's gonna be bumps in the road, and we're just gonna have to sort them out as they come and hope for the best and do what we think is right at the time.
I'm just asking from the union side, about the union side, because I think we can, as a city, if both the unions are like, hey, we like your guys' approach, we smooth those bumps out. That's kind of my whole point, is if both the unions are like, yeah, we're good with this, we don't have any issues, then at least from our city standpoint, we know we're working now as a team together, and all sides are on the same page. That's the only reason I'm bringing it up, and I brought it up, so.
All right, calling the question, we had a motion by Hertzberg, seconded by Brick, as stated on the action sheet. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Motion carries. Right, that completes the business portion. We have our informational reports, the lodging tax minutes, the garbage rates, law enforcement call logs, mileage reports, along with the notices for the informational session. So I will try and attend at least one of those, because I'm grateful that we're doing that. So, right. With that, we have no other business. We stand adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Chuck, for
I'd be like, did we miss
Before I came here
it?
tonight.